All right, we're going to bring out our next panel. It's on forecasting, personalization, and customer service challenges for robotic retail. We got Lee Mokri coming out. He's the founder of Byte and a proud new papa again. Thank you for being here. And Cynthia Yeung, the COO of CafeX. And this is going to be fun. This is going to be, she's got some branding with her. Nice placement of the CafeX coffee cup. Yeah, so that's a good reminder. I should just let people know, at the risk of sounding, like a shill, but CafeX is right at Sansom and Bush. And so you can get a full coffee robot experience. And that's a great way for us to start, because as I got off BART yesterday, flew in from Seattle, took the BART, which I forgot how long it is to take from Oakland Airport to downtown San Francisco. And I needed a little pick-me-up, so I downloaded the CafeX app, and I ordered something. And here's the thing. I know I'm an oddball when it comes to my caffeine. I like black iced tea, and I like it with a little milk. A lot of people that when I go to Starbucks or wherever think that's weird, but it's what I like. And when I was in the app, I could order yet a nitro tea, which was delicious, but I couldn't add to it. And so my question is, as we're talking about customization, how do you at CafeX and subsequently Byte, how do you balance variety and customizability with your footprint and what you're able to do? Let's start off with that, Cynthia, with you.
Yeah, so actually, I think we had this conversation yesterday, too. The machine is actually perfectly capable of delivering, what you talked about. We just hadn't configured that particular option because it didn't occur to us that someone would want to add milk to their nitro tea. But again, that's actually one of the reasons why we staff all of our machines with people that we call coffee bar specialists. And their job, in addition to refilling, maintaining, cleaning the machine, part of it is also serve as our eyes and ears on the ground to talk to people who might want things that we don't currently offer, but we could easily configure the machine to do so.
Yeah, see, I was not intimidated. That's the wrong word. They're very approachable. But the thought never even occurred to me that I should go like, hey, you should add this. So it's just interesting to think about. But do you have that issue with Byte fridges? Like, you stock them, and I think for you it's important. I think we were talking before about variety and making sure that people don't walk by and see the same things every day. Mm-hmm. But how do you balance the desires and taste cravings of busy offices with what you can stock?
It comes down to demand planning for us. If you're not familiar with the Byte fridge, it's just a 2 by 2 by 6.5 feet tall glass front refrigerator. So there's not a lot of real estate in it, but we've got a couple of advantages. We use some pretty robust demand planning algorithms that we've created in-house to try to predict what's going to sell each day in each office. So our customers are kind of voting with their dollars rather than just providing feedback. We do accept that as well. But we see across all of our fridges in the entire fleet who's buying what's selling well in law firms or manufacturing locations. And then if a product's selling well in one and we don't have it stocked in another, we can add it or complement other products with it. But our technology also allows us to do something called open slotting. So while it's a small footprint, each row, it's not like traditional vending where you've got to have like Diet Coke all the way back in a coil. Each row can have a variety within it. So it's more like a cheese aisle at the grocery store where you've got a turkey sandwich behind that, a ham sandwich behind that, a kombucha if you want. So there's a lot more variety that we're able to pack into a small space.
So just to follow up on that point, so obviously we have demand tracking as well. We know, down to the unit, like how many of any given product that we're selling. I think the question is more, how do you know what people want if you don't currently offer it? So for example, if your machine doesn't currently sell, I don't know, chia pudding, how would you know that people demand it?
We test it. So we don't cook any of the food ourselves. So it's not like we've got a test kitchen. So we work with all third parties. We've got hundreds of food suppliers here in the Bay Area. So we'll test it in a handful of fridges, see how it does. If there's demand or clear demand, we'll roll it out to a larger number of stores. So it's testing.
Yeah, so I would say that we're pretty similar. We're constantly testing new products. This is a test, guys, so let us know if you like it or not. We're testing different chais. We're actually having a little bit of a chai off because we had an internal debate as to which chai was better, and we couldn't settle it internally. So if you guys want to vote with your dollars, well, we're going to take that into consideration.
The gauntlet is thrown down. So that's interesting to think about just in terms of data, right? You track all kinds of data, not just from the things you sell or stock, but just there's all kinds of demand data. How far down the data hole do you go, right? Like in terms of weather, sporting events, or Dreamforce here in San Francisco, right? Just things that are black swans or whatever. how far down the data rabbit hole did you go, and how long did it take you to get there? What was the determining? Lee, I'll start with you.
That's a good question. We've got a lot more data than in the hole than we go down, or we don't go as far down as we have the data to. It gets really complicated with demand planning and people not ordering in advance. It's really complicated stuff. So we look at, we could look at traffic, we could look at weather, but what we do look at is stockouts. So time on shelf. We've got the expiration date of every product, but if a product stocks out, is that a bad thing or a good thing? If you've got 5 tuna sandwiches and it stocks out 12 hours before the next delivery, that's a bad thing. But if it stocks out 30 minutes before the next delivery, that's a good thing. You've probably got the right power level there. So we look at stockouts, we look at time on shelf, we look at time to next delivery. We look at a fair amount of data beyond that, just nothing beyond that. Beyond the demand comes to mind.
And how long did it take you to get there?
It's been an iterative process. I think at one point we were too far down the rabbit hole. So, we started with one data point, added another, and as we add more capability, it kind of improves the demand planning and improves the sell-through. So we've been at it for 2.5 years. So we started when we launched the company.
And you, Cynthia?
Yeah, so one of the really interesting things is that we found that our analytics were actually ahead of our vendors' ability to address that. So, for example, we could actually predict with relative accuracy, like how much milk or beans or whatever product we would actually be using. But the problem was that our vendors, our distributors, whether it's our milk distributor or bean distributor, they actually weren't necessarily able to adjust that quickly on the fly on their side. So I think long story short, we have a lot of data. We actually end up not using half of it because our vendors can't keep up, because they're actually still using fairly antiquated systems.
The vendors.
They're great.
No,
we love them.
We
love them. It's just the systems that they're using, I think, sort of hampers their ability to deal with sort of a lot of real-time type changes.
So, Cynthia, you mentioned earlier that you have a human who works alongside the robot at CafeX. Is one of their primary functions just sort of customer service in terms of dissatisfaction? How do you deal with that in terms of, unlike, so when I go to a vending machine and I get a Coke or a Pepsi, if it's flat or whatever, I'm not going to call the 1-800 number on the side of the machine. That's just not going to happen. So, yes, they just got $1.25 from me or whatever, right? But you have more who ordered, when, and what they ordered. How does that play into sort of your customer relations in terms of customer satisfaction?
So one of the things that I actually thought was really interesting, I'm not a founder of CafeX. I actually joined, I was at SoftBank before this, working on their next-gen robotic systems. But, one of the things that I actually thought was really interesting at CafeX was that I originally thought that everybody, after their first, try at the machine, they would all start using the mobile app and opt for convenience and speed, which are, part of the core value propositions of something like this. What I found, actually, was that a lot of our customers, or a lot of our regular customers, mind you, they wait. They know we have the app. They wait until they get there to order. They like to watch the machine, and then they like to talk to our coffee bar specialists, which I found fascinating. And I think that really sort of speaks to the value of emotional labor that I don't think we place enough emphasis on. But we are in the F&B space. We are in hospitality. And I think that that's something that's really interesting that we want to continue to explore.
And how about you, Lee? With your if there's dissatisfaction with whatever was stocked in there, what's sort of the process for you guys?
So I'm new to the food space. Before launching Byte, I was in a different role. And one interesting piece that I've learned from the vending space is you mentioned there's a 1-800 number on the side of the vending machine. Many don't have that. They've got a box of envelopes on the top, so you have to actually mail away your dispute.
Oh, I would totally do that.
The 50 cents for the stamp, but by design, those boxes are typically empty because they don't want to get that mail. So with Byte, it's immediate feedback loop. When you close the door, you can add your email address, you can itemize receipt, you can provide feedback on the products, you can type in feedback, and we're checking a couple things. So if somebody requests a refund, if their kombucha was flat or their salad was open or for whatever reason, we'll give that refund, no questions asked. Like I said in the last panel, we've got this captive kind of static audience. When we put a Byte fridge in a location with 100 employees, we've got those 100 employees for the next couple of years, so we really want to delight them. So no questions asked on the refund, but even if somebody, you can also rate a product. If somebody rates something 1 out of 5 stars, because for whatever reason, we'll actually proactively reach out to them, maybe give them a refund depending on the circumstance, or give them a coupon code for the next purchase. So if the bar is an empty box of envelopes on the top of the vending machine, I think when they're using our machine, it's different than a vending machine, but when they're using our service, it's kind of head and shoulders above that.
It's funny, Cynthia, that you should mention sort of the mobile app experience, because I used it yesterday, but the thing I didn't know is how far ahead could I order and still have it be ready, right? There's sort of, especially if you're ordering a hot drink, there's probably a timing issue in terms of when you get it and when it's going to be put into production. But I did notice that I got a notification on my watch today saying, hey, here's a coupon, thanks for buying, and here's a coupon for it.
You're in the test group.
Yay for me. I'm going to caffeinate all afternoon. So with that, how are you using, there's the watch, there's the phone. How are you using these sort of different mechanisms? There's texting, there's email, there's what mechanisms are you finding are best for communicating with customers?
So I don't think I can go into too much detail on that, because that is something that we are constantly testing. But
okay.
We're testing a lot of different channels to see what the impact is. We're testing a lot of different types of campaigns. Ultimately, this isn't just purely by the robotics side. Robotics is one aspect of technology that we're deploying to create a better retail F&B experience. But it's just one of many, many things that we're doing. We know that the press likes to focus on the articulated arm and that sort of the flashy side of things, but really that's not where our focus is.
Okay, so let's talk about a different focus then, which is, again, let's get back to data. And I'm wondering so when I asked earlier, you could see the number of people who are with startups. What kinds of, to the extent that you can answer this question, what kinds of investments or what kind of advice would you give to people who are building up their data teams? And what can they learn? What can you share from what you've learned about either gathering data or understanding what data is most important to delivering that customer service experience at the end?
I mean, so, one of my first jobs out of college was at Google, where we were... how many of you remember Google Toolbar? So this is way back when, way before Chrome even existed. I was on the Chrome launch team. And so I think I actually learned a lot, from data analytics from that side, as well as one of my other jobs, my first jobs out of college was at Capital One, which did a lot of sort of credit card analytics. So there's a lot of really interesting things that you can do with data, as long as you set everything up correctly in the first place. I would say at bare minimum, cohort tracking. I mean, this is, preaching to the choir, I'm sure, but at the very least, you should start with that.
Lee, any advice for people who are building out data teams or looking to understand data?
I mean, data is kind of the center of our business. How we think of, data has a real big impact on our revenue, obviously. Access to accurate data is very important. I mean, we're an IoT business, so we're getting data from a number of different channels, and looking at the correct sets of data, making sure that there's no conflicts of data. We've gone down kind of one road, looking at the wrong data set. Another data set tells an entirely different story. So, I mean, all businesses are going to have different data points. Kind of focusing on those data points that are most relevant to your revenue channels are kind of the key to our business, obviously.
Okay. Now, aside from saying the words like high volume or high traffic, what are some of the best locations? So as somebody, let's say there's somebody who's managing an office in the audience, or an airport manager, or some kind of high traffic places. What should they know about installing a machine like one of yours before they do? What are some of the questions that you like people coming in kind of knowing already? Cynthia, I'll start with you. Yours is a much bigger, it's a 3,000-pound machine, right? So it's a little different than putting a fridge in. But as you expand to different locations, what should people know about installing an automated kiosk like this?
Permitting is different in every city, county, state, country. It can be a huge headache. Know what kind of permits your robotic solution is going to fall under. Definitely make sure you have a good handle on that from day one. And then also just understand what the opportunity cost is of placing your machine versus whatever it is that would be placed in there otherwise. So to the extent that, your revenue per square foot or whatever metric it is that's applicable to that particular spaces, make sure that you're far exceeding those metrics. Again, preaching to the choir.
Revenue per square foot is certainly important for us. I mean, it's a much different experience with our fridges because they're smaller. What we've noticed in terms of placements is captive audience is really important, kind of like a butts and seats type of audience, where it's the same people in the office every day. We've tested it at co-working spaces, which they're not as high traffic locations for us. We've got them in airports, which do great. Hospitals do great. Hotels do great. Offices are kind of our bread and butter. But co-working spaces are tough because there's a lot of entrepreneurs there. They're meeting people for coffee. They're coming in at different hours. So that's kind of the one type of location that we've had challenges with.
And they're all just drinking Soylent anyway, right? So you don't even need to stock that much. All right, we've got a couple minutes left. I want to open it up to questions. Anybody have a question? Raise your hand, and Catherine will bring the mic. Did I see one up there? No? Okay, well, don't be shy. All right, well, we'll close out here with a couple more things. So, also, again, without saying real good, how good are you at predicting demand now? Like, can you come into a space, like a new space, let's just say we'll confine it to like a geographic area. Are you able to are you at like 90, 98, 100% accuracy? Lee, I'll start with you.
90 is good for us. Like a 10% spoilage rate is where we try to keep it. We do a lot of cohort analysis, but we've got a pretty good idea of the types of locations where we can place fridges. More than 200 people will do really well for us. If we put it in a manufacturing location like Tesla or Chevron, we've got a different food mix. So we place, it's same type of people, but it's a different food mix than we would in like a law firm or an ad agency where they're looking for green drinks and they don't mind spending $10 to $12 on a salad. So the food mix is one piece, but also the location of where the actual fridge is another.
Cynthia?
Yeah, so indoors we have a pretty good handle on. Outdoors we're still building out our weather model. So that location out there at Wimbush, it's our outdoor location. We've been operating it since July. We haven't gone through a full year of operating outdoors yet, and so we're still building out that model.
Okay. Last
weather
chance.
Does have an impact, by the way. Spoiler alert.
Wait, well, I'm sorry. What does?
I said weather does have an impact when you're operating outdoors.
Well, I would
Spoiler
imagine.
Alert,
yeah,
if it's raining, it's bad.
Yes, you don't want to stand there waiting. I can imagine. I'm from Seattle. I understand the rain. Everything's indoors up there. Okay, so with this, as we were looking at forecasting and personalization, is there a sort of how far down personalization or customization do you want to go? Again, I know we talked a little bit earlier about the robot is capable of doing lots of different things, but how much do you want it to? And do you, all the way down to, personalized for, a person, right? Which is kind of silly if you're in an office of 200 people, or maybe not. I don't know. How far down do you want to go in terms of customization? Either.
Yeah, I think our customers really appreciate it. What we're experimenting with right now is something we call dynamic pricing, where we know the expiration date of every product. We've got a captive audience. So we can dynamically change the price of that product based on the shelf life that it has left. So if you've got a sandwich in there that's going to expire tomorrow and we're trying to sell it for $6, we can drop the price, or our algorithms can drop the price to $3. And we can look across, hey, there's 100 people in this office. 20 of them have tried this sandwich before, and we've got 10 of their email addresses. Let's hit 3 of them, and 2 of them rated it 4 out of 5 stars because they thought it was too expensive. Let's hit 2 of them with an email and say, hey, go grab that sandwich in the front row on the top shelf in the next 25 minutes, and you'll get it for $3 off. We can do that, and our customers, I think, appreciate it because they're getting a product that they rated well, so they like it, and it's a good product at a good price. So they appreciate it.
Anything from you, Cynthia, to close out?
Yeah, no, so definitely there's a lot of really interesting things you can do on the marketing side. I will say that, one thing that I think is true about how CafeX operates is that we do have very strong opinions on how things should taste. So we do actually have guardrails, quote unquote, in place to prevent people from putting together combinations that we actually don't think taste very good. Even though the machine is capable of doing it, we haven't done it yet. So, to your point around having milk in your black tea, we're going to have to test that out and make sure that we agree internally that that is something we want to allow our customers to do before we're actually going to put it on the menu.
Awesome. Well, that's the time we have. Thank you both so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Let's give a round of applause, please.